All right, what we're going to do today is go over how to manipulate your audio in order to make it conform to the tempo of your session, the music that you're making, as well as give us the ability to pitch it in ways that we haven't done before. So I'm going to just start with this clip and talk about a few things. All right, so many of you probably recognize that beat, G-Eazy's Achievement. I'm focusing on the sample, the original sample, which was by an artist named Odetta. I have it right here. So the original sample and how it's used in the loop. So two things. Notice the pitch of these first couple of notes compared to how it's used in the beat. All right, so the beat pitches it up substantially. The other thing, if you really pay attention to where this third note drops in the original and the subsequent notes, and then we're going to compare them to how they used it in the track. All right, so what's important is this third note in the original is late if you were to compare it to how it's used in the beat. So what they did, they compressed or moved those notes around so that they would fit rhythmically on top of the drum beat pattern, where just leaving it as a sample wouldn't. And I've had that conversation with a few of you. It gives you more control if you can kind of split up the notes by note by note. So what I'm going to do, just to start a couple things, is I'm going to get rid of the sample because I have it down here. All right, so I had already cut the end of it, so this is a perfect two-measure loop. But look, it is two measures. I can count it. 1, 2, 3, 8 counts, 2 measures. But if you look at the bars and beats ruler, it has us almost through the third measure, and that's because our session tempo does not match our music. So we've done this a few times. I'm just going to quickly show you a different way to find tempo, and I'm just going to come up to Event and identify Beat or Command I, and I'm going to tell Pro Tools that this clip is 2 measures long, that it starts on beat 1 of measure 1 and it ends on beat 1 of measure 3. And what it does is it changes your session tempo to exactly whatever it would be based on this clip. And it's telling me that it's 87.9391. So, little trick. Maybe 88 would work. But how else could I manipulate audio? I'm not going to have this be 120. I'm not going to set it to 88 right now. I'm actually going to make it 95 so I can show you a couple things. So this is 2 measures, but at 95 I'm still over by a couple of 16th notes. So I want to introduce this idea of elastic audio. If you come down to this, I call it, ooh, hey now, remind me. I call it the oil canister, this little kind of pinpoint. And you click in this area, this is the enabling elastic audio drop down. And what these four, elastic audio allows you, like it says, to kind of stretch or compress your audio files, your audio clips to conform to session tempo or whatever it is that you're looking to do with them. It also allows you to pitch them. These are a number of different algorithms depending on the type of program material you're using. Polyphonic would be used for chord-based sounds like guitars and pianos, rhythmic for drums, monophonic maybe for a bass that's just playing one note at a time. But they also kind of work interchangeably. I tend to use polyphonic when I'm using pre-produced tracks because there's all kinds of different things going on. So all I've done right now is I have enabled elastic audio. I haven't actually done anything yet. And then I'm going to click and hold on the trim tool, and I'm going to choose the TCE trim tool, which now, if I were to grab this, see how it's manipulating the audio? This is stretching, this is compressing, okay? Stretching it out, compressing. Now, stretching can lead to some artifacts, kind of thins out the quality of the track. Like, let me be dramatic about it. Now, that could be cool for an effect, but generally speaking, that's not going to work for us. Compressing is a bit better, and there are other ways to achieve the same idea of stretching that yield better results. But for now, all I really want to do is show you that I can make this beat 2 measures long by compressing it. You know. Okay, and when I do that, it speeds it up. You know, it's taking 2 measures that was almost 2.5 measures long, or a 2-measure phrase that was taking up 2.5 measures, and it's compressing it. So it is playing back faster, but it works. So time stretching and compressing. Now, what could I do with that knowledge to get this? So first, I don't need this part, because even though it's in the intro of the G-Easy track, it is not part of the beat. Alright, so I don't want this tempo anymore of 95. I'm going to put it at 88, because I know that that's the original. And for the sake of doing this properly, I'm going to get rid of that, bring this back in, cut it quickly. You know. Alright, so I have my 2-measure phrase, which now at 88 is really taking up 2 measures. Now, remember, it was a little bit under, it was 87 point something. So you can see that it is going over into the 3rd measure if I zoom in. So I'm just going to give it a nudge. Okay, now it's exactly 88. You know, and you probably can't tell the difference. That was a very, very minor shift. Okay, but that's going to come in handy, and it's important for later. So if we listen to both of them, what I want you to pay attention to is the rhythm of these notes. You know. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, and this is an experiment, I hope it works, is I put on polyphonic elastic audio, and I'm going to take this that I know is 2 measures, and even though it's almost going in to be 3 measures, I'm going to compress it. You know. All right, so now it's the same length, but where these notes are playing are all over the place. So I'm going to cut them up into notes. I am using tab to transients. And there are other ways, more advanced ways to make this a little bit more accurate, but I'm going to show you this way right now. right, so see, right there is where this note needs to hit. So I am going to, oh, I can already feel this is not the best way of doing it. So I'm time stretching that one. All right, so, this one is a little bit late. So I'm going to move that one over. Should probably do this a little bit more zoomed in. Okay, now I'm over again, and I think I can just squeak by with, yeah, just compressing that one little part of the clip. All right, so I'm a little bit worried to hear how this sounds because there's some choppiness here. Okay, I'm actually half okay with it. Now, in terms of how these spots were edited together, another quick little trick is when you do this kind of editing, if there were any clicks or artifacts from your edits, if you hit Command F, you'll get what's called the batch fade dialog box. And putting a 10 millisecond or even a 5 millisecond fade on these cuts will smooth them over. And just by hitting OK, what I've done is put a short little fade right here in between each place where there was a cut, and that was done automatically in one keystroke. So that's pretty cool. All right, another little trick. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clips making up this one phrase. That's annoying. So I'm going to come over to Edit and Consolidate Clip. And now I have one solid clip that looks good, is in time and everything. Now, the pitch situation. I need to get this to pitch to be the pitch in the G-Easy track. If I come over to Clip and Elastic Properties, this dialog box pops up, and it's already been, when I consolidated it, it got rid of any TCE percentages. You would see that, for example, here it shows that it's 99.93% of what it was before I compressed it. Now here, because it's consolidated, it's 100%, but I'm just going to come over to pitch shift. And this window, this particular field is semitones, which is one key on the piano, and cents are in between. So semitones would be kind of a rough pitch shift, and cents would help you get closer if you are in between notes. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to listen. I'll go up one using my arrow buttons on the keyboard. 2, not there yet. Nope. Nope. Okay, if I really want to talk about it, this note is a little bit late, but I don't really want to talk about it. Okay, so I have pitch shifted this. That's on point though now. 5 semitones up. Yeah, this is a little late. All right, I'm pretty much done with this for the moment, so I'm going to hide it. The next trick that I want to show you is to bring in a loop and conform it to your session's tempo. So what does that mean? It means that this loop is playing back, or this session is at 88 BPM. I have a drum beat that I already bounced, it's 1 measure long. I believe that it's a 95 BPM. So actually, let's test that out. Import audio. Of course, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, but it should be here in bounced files, drums, okay? And I'm just going to copy this in. I don't need to copy it because it's already in my session folder. I'm going to add it. Okay, so this drum beat, quickest way to figure out what the tempo is, event, identify beat. It is 1 measure, so that'll take us out to 2. Boom, 95. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want it. So knowing that, and I got to get my tempo back to 88. So this is on time. All right, so knowing that that drum beat is 95, I'm going to make it fit at 88 with a totally different feature in Pro Tools, which is called the Workspace browser. So come over to Window and choose your Workspace, and you'll see your hard drive or any drives that are mounted or attached to your computer. I could head over to the share drive and look for all kinds of samples. I could go into my, into the users and into my desktop. But it just so happens that my current session is up here in locations. And I'm going to pop that down. And if I click on session audio files, I have all the files that are in my session. If I click on it and press play, okay, it shows that it's 1 measure long. But it's faster than my session. If I click on this button here, which basically, if I click here, you'll see audio files conform to session tempo. And that's the same thing as clicking on this button, by the way. It will essentially take this measured drum beat, and as I bring it into my session, it's going to say, well, the session's at 88. We're going to analyze it, and we're going to stretch it out or compress it to fit. So I'm going to just drag this from the Workspace browser into my session, and there it is. I'm going to close this. Now, it has elastic audio because it had to be warped in order to get there. That's not what I want to hear. Okay, so there you have it. I'm going to take this, I'm going to make kind of a little intro in hopes that it sounds good. Maybe we should hear it. Okay, I already said 3 times that this note's late. Don't judge me. But that's a pretty cool feature, that you can bring in audio files that automatically conform to the session tempo. And this is what I want you to think about in terms of making your audio work, because not everything needs to go through the sampler. I am requiring you to learn how to do that. It's important. But also is once you get something conformed, you can drop it into your sampler, bounce it down and do it that way. I want to show you one last thing, and I'm not testing this out, so I'm hoping that it's going to work. Over here, and you always ask me when you're making a new track, audio tracks, should that be ticks or samples? Well, audio is handled with samples. 44.1 sample rate means that 44,100 samples or images have been taken of a piece of audio and recreating it digitally. Ticks are for MIDI. And when you have, and as you know, MIDI can change tempo very easily. If you have elastic audio engaged and you change your audio tracks to ticks, then you can say, you know, I'm digging this, but at 88, it's just a little bit too slow. I'm going to change it to 90. And now the audio changed with it. So that's kind of a cool little feature, because now, let's say I turn off the conductor, I can just change my tempo, and it's not going to sound good. Like, you can, go overboard. And slowing it down, so it's really going to make it sound kind of wacky. All right, so you don't want to do that. But within reason, 5 BPM, 10 BPM, one direction or the other. It does tend to do better with compression, because if you think about it, you're taking a certain amount of data and just compressing it into a smaller amount of space, so there's all kinds of data still, maybe some leftover, in fact. But as you're stretching it, like you might stretch a pizza dough, it's going to thin out the further you stretch it, and then eventually it'll break and there'll be some holes or something like it. Okay, so what did we go over? We went over elastic audio for pitch and for time, for shifting time, stretching and compressing, and pitching up or down. We also used the Workspace browser in order to import audio files and have them conform to our session tempo. We did some editing of this track, of this sample, in order for it to rhythmically fit the way that we wanted it to, and stretched it and compressed it to be 2 measures long. And we learned about ticks versus samples and how to stretch tracks and have them change as you change for your MIDI tracks. Yeah, there you go. Have fun.